Welcome to a new episode of AW Confidential. Today's guest has a very long list of accomplishments, and I will do my best to highlight some of those. Gaby Natale was named one of People's 25 most influential Latinas. She is a top Latina keynote speaker, three-time Emmy Award winner, back to back, and she is the first Hispanic to do that. And she's also the first HarperCollins Latina published to their leadership division. And her wins do not stop there. Gabby is also a best selling author with books like Vicious Circle, Restore Your Confidence, and Emerge Stronger. Her award winning show Super Latina was just the beginning. Today, she is the president of AGanar Media, and it all began with her coming to this country with two suitcases filled with dreams. Gabi, congratulations. And I summarized it. It's a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I get exhausted just by listening to you. Like, who did all of that?
Who is that, right? A lot of people say that. They say they never really think about all the things that they're doing, but you have done so much. And I am so grateful that you're here today because you're an inspiration. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So I read that you began, and I actually remember seeing you on TV when I was very little, uh, not very little, but a young girl. You began your career in broadcast journalism, and then you shifted to entrepreneurship. And instead of forcing yourself into a box, which I think a lot of us do, or allowing yourself to be molded, you started creating your own content. And this was way before I had, or anyone, who might be listening had the idea to create their own content. You created Super Latina, and what one of the things that was so impressive was that the show was done from a carpet showroom, and it went from local to national to Emmy. So today you're this best-selling author, you have this incredibly successful career, and you're also sharing your empowering messages as a keynote speaker in places like the United Nations, Walmart, which you just came back from, and some of the top firms in the US. So you dared yourself to be the first, a pioneer, and you talk about, you know, moving the world forward. So, how, in your opinion, have you and your work moved the world forward?
I think now for me it's a mission. As you said, I always believe that starting small does not mean that you're thinking small. I started even before that. I'm in Argentina. My hometown of La Plata is not even the capital of the country. I moved to Buenos Aires to study. I have a bachelor's in international relations and a master's in journalism. And I graduated with the worst timing because when I graduated, there was one of the biggest crises in Argentina with 20% unemployment, 5 presidents in 10 days, riots in the street. It was very hard. And I spent almost 2 years unemployed until all of a sudden, in a very random way, I got an opportunity to start doing what we now call telework for a firm in the United States. And then when that firm had an opening for a bilingual junior professional, they offered me the position, and that's how I came to the United States in a very unexpected and random way. But then what happened was that after a while, and I'm making a long story much shorter.
I know.
but after a while, then I moved to Mexico to open the office of this company that was hiring me in the United States. And then I started covering border issues. My work was seen by Univision, so I moved back to the United States and I started working as news anchor / reporter for one of the Univision stations. But then when my green card was approved, I started thinking about, what do I really want to do in terms of my creative freedom? That was my driver to become an entrepreneur. Back in that time, that was the year 2007. And there was not this culture of becoming an entrepreneur or creating your own content. YouTube was barely starting, and I started uploading my own content for my mother to see in Argentina. I was no visionary, regarding social media. I just wanted my mom, hey, mom, I'm creating this, and as you said, I started doing it out of a carpet warehouse that a TV station allowed me to borrow because all their studios were busy at the time. But I know how to recognize an opportunity. And sometimes opportunities present ourselves in a very unsexy packaging, but that doesn't mean that there's no opportunity, that there's no possibility to grow there. So I painted my own TV set. I started creating content in the carpet warehouse. And then the financial crisis happened in the United States and globally in the year 2008. Again, horrible timing. But that was what pushed me to start thinking bigger, because if I stayed in only one city, I will go bankrupt, and I will have to go and look for a job again in the middle of a recession. Same thing that happened to me in Argentina. I knew that was not fun. So we started thinking a little bit bigger, and eventually we became from local to regional to national to 3-time Daytime Emmy Award-winning company, and many opportunities came after that. The opportunity to become a published author, as you said, with the HarperCollins Leadership Division, and now, which is like something very big in my heart, the opportunity to be a keynote speaker, which as a woman who happens to be a Latina, who happens to be an immigrant, let me tell you, it's very lonely in those
I just got
conferences.
chills.
It's very lonely in those conferences, especially somebody with me with an accent, with a foreign accent, and I'm not contorting my tongue to sound the way I am. It's not my original accent or anything like that, but I do.
I I actually wanted to. I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to, and I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
go
but
ahead.
you did a tech talk in 2020, and you talked about accentism, which I honestly I've thought about it, but it's not a conversation that I know I've had with anyone. And accentism is the perception that certain accents are inferior to others, or which I think there it's very prevalent, but we don't talk about it. So I often hear like immigrants assimilate, like you said, you change the way you speak to fit in. You don't do that. And it sort of brought me back to when I was a young girl. I remember growing up that my mother would take me along to her doctor's appointments. She knew enough English, but she would say, "No, I don't like the way I sound. I want you to come and I want you to speak to them for me." And she said, I remember her mentioning it was, she sort of felt shy about the way it sounded, her English sounded, and it's not uncommon. And you own your accent, which I love because I don't see that very often. You embrace all the things that make you unique, and you preach that as part of your message, which I love. And I think for a lot of people, it's very hard to do that, to embrace what makes them unique. So I'm wondering, how did you get here? Because I know for me, growing up, I thought the things that made me different were weaknesses. But you say the complete opposite. So what's the first step to even beginning, this shift to a pioneer, sort of mindset, to that own who you are mindset? Where do you begin? Because it can be daunting.
Well, going back to the accent and the accentism, this perception that certain accents are inferior to other ones. Sometimes it happens even to native speakers. Sometimes if they have an accent from the South or an accent from here, from there, the same thing applies. But when you are somebody who has English as a second language, it's very usual sometimes to come across people who mistakenly assume that you're uneducated only because English happens to be your second language. And we have to start thinking that we have to differentiate between not having enough language skills and not having a proper command of the language and having a foreign accent, because these two are two different things. And then another thing, going back to your point of becoming a pioneer, being a pioneer, I want to instill in everyone the pioneer spirit, the idea that what makes you unique and what makes us unique is different for each one of us. So that's why I talk about your own flavor of uniqueness, which may be different from my own flavor of uniqueness. So what makes you unique, your own flavor of uniqueness, is something that is a gift. It's something that is going to bring value to the places where you go, that it's going to bring a fresh point of view in the meetings where you go, or in the workplaces where you are interacting with other people. But if we all want, like you said, if we all want to fit in, if I want to contort myself into knowing more pop culture of the 70s than somebody who lived the 70s, knowing more about, American football when I grew up with soccer, and just ignoring that I grew up with soccer, and I just want to mold myself into being somebody that I'm not, I am doing a disservice first to myself and then to that group, because my point of view with my whole set of experiences can bring a fresh perspective, can identify stories, opportunities, white spaces in the industry that other people cannot identify. And it's by combining all these different points of view and combining the richness of all of our experiences that we become stronger and better teams.
And that is absolutely true. And you mentioned, a lot of people struggle with this feeling of inferiority. Um, that's a tongue twister. Um, and a lot of us operate from a place of lack, which makes it hard to be what you cannot see. So I think the other part of it is, as we get older, it's harder to change our ways because we're so sort of, brainwashed. So we have this mindset that it's hard to get out of. What steps did you take? Did you have to take to recalibrate your belief system and become open to all these new possibilities and beautiful possibilities? And do you believe that we can do it at any age?
Definitely. First, we have to reprogram how we feel and how we think about age, because we are living longer, healthier, more fulfilling lives than 1, 2, 3, 5 generations ago. And the ones that are being born right now are going to live in even longer lives. So we have to adjust that, because the idea that after you're 40, all you can aspire to is having a crisis and then becoming, somebody whose life is going to become worse and then die, that's just so outdated, because right now we're living longer, more fulfilling lives. I'm 45. I've said it out loud. I'm proud of my age. I feel like every stage of our lives has, its own special thing, its own special place. And yes, maybe my arm is not as toned as 20 years ago, but you know what? I got a little bit wiser on the way and a little bit more confident. I hope so. So I think we have to, rethink how we approach age. But at the same time, going to your question, it's normal when we are breaking barriers and we are sometimes the first or the only ones in certain spaces, and our individuality is met by a sea of sameness. It's very easy to make the mistake of thinking that our own individuality makes us inadequate. Plus, we hear a lot of these messages for us women in the workplace. Somebody somehow has this secret algorithm in terms of how much we should smile. You don't smile enough, then you're not likable. You smile too much, then you are not going to have credibility. Nobody tells that crap to a man. So if you want to smile, smile. If you want to have a face without a smile, don't smile. But there's all these kind of rules around if you speak with your hands too much, if you smile. And I think the only way to redefine what is acceptable in the professional world in terms of culture and in terms of feeling ourselves and being able to bring our whole selves to the workplace is by embodying it ourselves, because culture starts changing from the inside out. It's not going to happen unless we own it, unless we embody it. And the feeling of really feeling more comfortable in your own skin versus and speaking with the language, with the accent that you have, and and walking in the way that you are supposed to be in your own style, it's such a relief versus all the energy that we can use to contort ourselves to fit in these boxes that are not serving us any good. They're just energy vampires. These boxes are energy vampires. But as long as we conform to all these boxes, they're not going to go away. We have to take those steps to be the ones who start changing culture. And that's what I'm seeing around myself. A lot of people who are the first or the only or who are different, and many times are saying, what if I laugh out loud? What if I speak with my hands? What if I like to dress in colors? So what? And I think that's how change starts.
It starts with you. Well, change starts with you, right? And then hopefully you can just move that forward. So you wanted to see Latinas represented in media. You took a big risk by going out on your own, but and you felt that was the best path for your creative freedom. Now, looking back, now that you know what you know, what is one thing you may have done differently?
I think I thought at the time, because the industry was like that at the time, that you had to do it step by step. So that's how I did. So first I had the local, then regional, then national, then I expanded to digital, etc. But as I was doing this path, step by step, the industry also changed, and the change came with digital. So while many of us grew up and we studied broadcast journalism at a time where we were prepared and conditioned to think that, okay, this is step number one, this is step number two, this is step number three. By the time I made national or I became a published author, many of those things happened to me. A lot of people who did a different journey because the internet and social media was exploding and growing, a lot of people who did a different journey, they also went from point A to B, just doing a different journey. So maybe looking back, I would say, it's very easy it's very easy looking in hindsight and saying, oh, maybe you should have done this or that. But I think something that could have been, saved me time or headaches is realizing that the rules that I had for the industry were changing, and were changing fast. So now in hindsight, I see that what I did was what I was taught to by the industry of the time and my education of the time, my master's degree and everything. But I think one interesting lesson will be to also keep an open mind. Don't be so rigid. Keep an open mind, because sometimes the change is happening at the same time, and if you're paying attention, maybe you can leapfrog, and instead of doing all the steps like I did, which don't get me wrong, I am thankful and I'm happy that I did them, because now I know how to script, edit, host, capture video. I know how to do everything because I had to learn to do every step. But at the same time, I think you can do it in a different way, and each journey is valid.
And I'm glad you said that, because I think sometimes, we see certain people skyrocket. We see things happening faster for them than for us. And the truth is, everyone's journey is different. And you don't have to do things, the way someone else does. There is no one blueprint. And I think the more we get out of that mindset, I think the more we can do, because the world, it's like the world is at our feet. We just have to figure out how to get there. But
And
I'm glad that you mentioned that.
And I'm never gonna regret learning. I'm a eternal apprentice. always learning. So I'm not going to regret that by doing things step by step, I have all these extra skills. And also it gives you more confidence, because when things happen fast, then sometimes it takes you by surprise and you feel like you don't have the tools to face them.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing it. You have so much wisdom right now. So, one of the things that I love to do at the end of the interviews is leave our community with an inspiring quote, a mantra, a piece of advice. And you've given us so much, as you know. So, thank you for all those gifts. What words can you share with anyone who is looking to draw out their own pioneer spirit and they want to dare themselves to be first? It's a scary thing.
Mm-hmm. What I would say is, first, don't be afraid to be visible. I'm talking to so many people in so many different organizations in different parts. And the commonality that I see is people saying, I'm working hard, I'm a hardworking, I have consistency in what I do, I have excellence in what I do, I have the skills, I went to college, or I learned it my way. So I have those two, but what I don't have is visibility. And many times they are hiding themselves or their skills. So please don't be afraid to be visible. Being visible and sharing your own contributions that not make you a horrible person. We're conditioned sometimes, especially as women or in the Hispanic community, to be humble, as if sharing and giving visibility to our contributions made us a bad person or a horrible person. This is not about vanity. This is about raising awareness about the contributions that you are doing, so that possibilities keep expanding for all of us. So that's one thing that I would say. Don't be scared of being visible. You have to do it. And the second one, when you are feeling uncomfortable, just remember, this is so much bigger than yourself. This is not just about you. This is about breaking barriers, not just for you, but for your community. That's why I talk about pioneers, because for a long time I heard like the first or the only or the different, and those terms are factually correct. But in my case, they made me feel disempowered. They made me feel isolated, like I'm alone here, first, only, different. Oh no. Like it's very hostile. But when I think about myself and I think, okay, I get a chance. Life is giving me the opportunity to be a pioneer. And a pioneer is in reference to others. You cannot be a pioneer on your own. If you're pioneering, you're breaking something for all your community. So if you think about it and you think that it's just so much bigger than yourself, that hopefully is going to give you the courage, the energy, and the determination to do it, because it's not just something that is going to make you happy, it's something that is going to make a lot more people happy and open doors for them.
Thank you so much, Gabby. I just want to make this last point because I thought of it. Over the course of time, I've been in different meetings and I remember, for years I would sit at a meeting and I would not share an opinion, share a contribution. I would be afraid that people would all listen to me. And it's what you talk about, that lack of, it's almost like a fear of being seen, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I think humans want to be seen. So it's really there's that conflict there. So I agree with you when you say, allow yourself to be visible, contribute one thing to a meeting, to whether it's a team meeting or a business meeting, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
contribute, because one little sentence or an idea, it can who knows where it can go.
I know. And even has it happened to you that you don't say it because you feel insecure? Then somebody, Mark says it, and like, hey, Mark, you're a genius. What a great idea. Hey,
Yes.
go, buddy. And then you leave the room and you're so mad at yourself. Don't leave those rooms mad at yourself. It doesn't matter if your idea is genius or is not genius, if it's gonna be accepted or not. Just make sure you get it out of your chest so that you guarantee yourself that you're not leaving that meeting pissed with yourself.
Thank you so much. You're an inspiration. Oh, I want to make sure, can you please share with our listeners where they can find out more about you, your books, your everything?
Absolutely. So the book is called The Virtuous Circle, and you can find it in English and in Spanish. So in Círculo Virtuoso or The Virtuous Circle by HarperCollins. It's in Amazon, Walmart, Target, you name it, Barnes and Noble, wherever you want to get it. It's there. And then in social, my website is gabynatale.com, and in social media, in Gaby Natale, I'm very active on LinkedIn, but also on Instagram and like most social media platforms, and it's my name at Gaby Natale, GabyNatale.
Gabby, thank you so much. Congratulations. And, I know we'll be seeing much more of you. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for this
Thank
interview.
you. Thank you. And thank you all for joining me on this episode of AW Confidential Podcast. Talk to you soon.